I have presented the entire action plan. Let me remind you that in the last 30 months alone, thanks to the work of the National Bank of Poland, we Poles have managed to earn exactly the amount needed to finance the Polish Safe Zero program. The details of the project are, as yet, unknown. The National Bank of Poland may help, but this requires cooperation with the government, controlled by Donald Tusk. For example, the government could issue securities, as it did during the coronavirus epidemic. Such securities could be bought by banks and then repurchased by the National Bank of Poland. But this requires cooperation with the government, and the Prime Minister is, as of now, unwilling. How is it that our governments never had any money because there are huge losses, and suddenly, after a visit to the president, some miraculous opportunities appear? It just wasn't possible before. We simply didn't have that option. Anyone who analyzes the macroeconomic circumstances in which the National Bank of Poland operates is well aware of this. Listen, I have here a letter from the president of the MBP from December, 2 months ago, in which he writes that the MBP incurred losses in 2024 and 2025, and we are talking about a loss exceeding 60 billion zloty in 2024 and approaching 100 billion at the end of 2025. The National Bank of Poland is not a typical bank. Its activities are not focused on generating profits, as is the case with commercial banks. Therefore, in previous years, the MBP sometimes made profits and sometimes incurred losses resulting from exchange rate differences accumulated by the MBP. However, the bank has the capacity to generate profits and may do so, for example, by selling some of its currencies, securities, or gold. We will make this profit very large using non-standard methods that we can do on a one-off basis without depleting our reserves. We want this profit to be used exclusively to strengthen our defense. The president of the MBP announces that he does not intend to sell the currencies that the bank has accumulated for a rainy day. We intend to propose measures that will not lead to a depletion in our foreign exchange reserves. The National Bank of Poland has a number of options. In recent years, President Glapiński has focused on strengthening the bank's resources. For example, Poland already possesses more gold reserves than the European Central Bank. We are in a unique situation. Military spending is Poland's priority at the moment. We are talking about the security of our country, the security of Polish citizens. We need to mobilize all our forces. It is not that what we are doing now can be repeated. It is a one-off action that cannot be done a second time. We Poles have, as a nation, bought securities and gold which have increased in value, and today, based on the profits gained in just the last dozen or so months, we can finance purchases for the Polish army with these assets. The Polish Safe Zero is an alternative to the EU's SAFE, which would avoid indebting Poland for 45 years for well over 40 billion euros. Poland's current government is unaware of these possibilities and has not made any effort to develop something like the Polish Safe Zero program, instead pushing Poland into deep debt with the EU until 2070. A loan from the EU would carry uncertainty related to the euro exchange rate and the significant risk of abuse by the European Commission, which contractually retains the right to freeze the borrowed money at any time. President Nawrocki has yet to make a decision on the original SAFE program. I have the statutory constitutional time to sign or not sign the law proposed by the parliamentary majority, and no one will put pressure on the President of Poland when to sign it or when not to sign it. The bill was submitted to the President's office last Friday, and he will make an appropriate decision within the legally prescribed 21 days. President Nawrocki is counting on the government's cooperation on the Safe Zero project. The Ministry of National Defense has already expressed its willingness to engage in talks. As the Ministry of National Defense, we are ready to talk and will definitely meet President Nawrocki to discuss the best solutions for Poland's security. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Donald Tusk is against the idea and is pressurizing the President to sign the bill on the original SAFE loan. This is despite the fact that the need for arms investments would be fully met by the less risky Safe Zero program. There will be no need to sell a single ounce of gold, as I said, but the Armed Forces Support Fund will gradually issue bonds, which will be taken over by commercial banks and then sold with a certain margin or commission to the National Bank of Poland, which will deposit them as valuable assets. This could be one of the possibilities for financing Safe Zero. The funds obtained will be transferred directly to the Armed Forces Support Fund. With his proposal, the President guarantees stable and long-term financing for the development of the armed forces. General Jarosław Gromadzinski also emphasizes that Safe Zero would give a more effective impetus to the development of the Polish defense industry. In the long term, this will generate greater profits and, most importantly, allow our plants to plan their development. They will be able to develop in the long term, improve their technologies, and conduct research and development. Safe Zero would also avoid raising Poland's debt to foreign entities, but the EU's SAFE program will cause the already high debt to increase. If we want to take out a loan in the form presented by the EU, law and government, this loan from the SAFE program would directly translate into an increase in debt of 185 billion zloty and an increase in these debt ratios to probably around 50%. Exceeding 60%, the constitutional threshold for public debt, will have dangerous consequences for the Polish economy. It would mean a halt to investment and an end to increases in the public sector budget. And this is what Poland may face if the government takes out the EU SAFE loan as the means to fund the military.
Nakhchivan, an enclave of Azerbaijan on the border with Iran. This is the moment a drone struck the local airport. A few minutes later, a second drone crashed near a school in a nearby town. Civilians were among the injured. Four people reported to our department in connection with this incident. Their condition is stable. Preliminary examinations were carried out and they were admitted to the appropriate wards. Of the four victims, two suffered barotrauma, while the other two suffered blunt injuries to the back. Azerbaijani authorities claim the drones flew in from the Iranian border. Tehran denies this, but Baku has no doubt who is behind the attack. These are clearly Iranian-made machines. They struck Nakhchivan in a despicable, cowardly, and shameless manner. This stain will never disappear from their repulsive faces. Therefore, all necessary measures will be taken through diplomatic channels. Our armed forces, the Ministry of Defense, the State Border Service, and all other special services have been put on first-degree mobilization and must be ready to carry out any operation. The strike on Nakhchivan means the war has begun to spread significantly beyond the Middle East. Azerbaijan is one of Israel's closest partners in the region and one of the main suppliers of oil to the Israeli economy. At the same time, air defense systems were activated over other Persian Gulf countries. Rockets and drones were flying over Abu Dhabi and Doha. According to the Emirati authorities, 9 ballistic missiles, 6 cruise missiles, and over 140 drones were intercepted in the last 24 hours. Alarms were also sounded in Qatar, where air defenses intercepted more missiles over the capital. In the air, a Qatari F-15 fought a victorious battle with 2 Iranian Su-24 bombers.
There were attempts to target Hamad International Airport. They were all thwarted, and the missiles were downed by our defensive measures, and none of them have reached the airport. The airport has been safe since the beginning of this.
At the same time, there were reports of attacks on shipping in the Persian Gulf. Several tankers were damaged after strikes attributed to Iranian drones. This was the first time an unmanned naval vessel had been targeted. Some ship owners have begun to restrict ship traffic in the Gulf, and countries in the region are increasing security at ports and oil terminals. Rockets intercepted over Qatar fell near the Ras Laffan complex, the world's largest LNG terminal. After the nighttime attacks, authorities in Doha decided to suspend liquefied gas production throughout the country.
I can announce today that we're sending 4 additional Typhoon jets to join our squadron in Qatar, to strengthen our defensive operations in Qatar and across the region.
At the same time, Israeli and American fighter jets carried out further strikes on military targets in Tehran and other parts of the country. The NATO Secretary General defended Washington's decisions, pointing out that the American campaign would eliminate the threat that Iran posed to the world.
We need it at 5%, but I would doubt it. Without President Trump, we would have reached it. We would have reached it. And then him now taking this decisive action to take out this capability of Iran to pose a threat as an exporter of terrorism and chaos to the Middle East, to Europe, to the world. I think if a president of a country is providing that type of leadership, some praise is warranted.
According to reports from Iran, military infrastructure and facilities linked to the missile program were hit. According to unconfirmed reports, several high-ranking commanders of the regime were killed.
Look, I think the end game is a Middle East that is not a threat to other parts of the world. And, you know, since I was a teenager, I was, 15 years old when the Shah was overthrown, and since then, Iran has been in a death to America.
In northern Israel, tensions are rising on the border with Lebanon. Hezbollah carried out rocket attacks from the southern part of the country, and the Israeli Air Force responded with airstrikes on targets in the Tyre and Beirut areas. Israeli forces are concentrating on the border itself and have called for the evacuation of civilians throughout southern Lebanon. Hezbollah maintains it is ready for confrontation. Our choice is to confront them to the highest level of sacrifice. We will not surrender. We will defend ourselves with our capabilities and our faith, regardless of the sacrifice. In the background, there have also been reports of a possible new land front opening up. According to media reports, U.S. forces have begun arming Kurdish troops who may enter northwestern Iran and attempt to provoke an uprising against the authorities in Tehran. This information has been denied by Iraqi Kurdish leaders, but the rumors concern the Iranian faction of the militants, who are said to have already taken up positions along Iran's northwestern border.
Masa Mobafeg is an Iranian woman living in Poland who, along with her mother and sister, fled Iran as a refugee. She knows firsthand what life is like under the brutal Ayatollah regime. When I was 9 years old, I was stopped by the morality police, and I rode in that car with the police for 8 hours while they filled the car with other underage girls. The problem with my clothing was not even an inappropriate hijab, but the fact that I was wearing white pants and a navy blue shirt, which was too much of a contrast and drew attention to me. Riding with strangers for 8 hours and then waiting another 5 or 6 hours for my mother to pick me up was a harrowing experience. Every day I spent in Iran was marked by misery and fear. When I was 9 years old in Iran, I witnessed people being doused with boiling water, gassed, beaten and thrown into mosques. They arrested members of my family and we didn't know where they were being held for months. They killed my nanny when I was a child, a woman who had been trying to have a baby with her husband for 7 or 8 years and was 4 months pregnant. The Iranian regime gave no quarter to children. Children aged 13 to 17 in prisons. Children are in prisons? Yes. They use my compatriots as shields. The mother of Masa, who was a teenager at the time, did not want this kind of life for her children. The choice fell on Poland, and not without reason. My mother was a single mother raising 2 daughters. From childhood, we knew that we would not live in Iran. My mother made sure of that. She came to Poland a little earlier than us. When we arrived, she said that because she felt that family culture was most cherished here, she would like to stay in Poland. My sister and I liked the fact that there weren't many immigrants from Muslim countries, so we trusted her, stayed here in Poland, and have never regretted that decision. There is no illegal migration, which makes me feel safe. But Masa's compatriots are paying the highest price every day, living under the yoke of the Ayatollahs. To give people an idea of the scale of this, in the city of Rasht, 1/3 of the population is in mourning because they have lost a close family member. 1/3 of the people in this city, right? 3 million people live in this city. In a city of 3 million, 1/3 of the people are in direct mourning. 1 million people are in mourning. Twice as many people are being detained, and among them are minors. When protests against the regime broke out in January, it was mainly young people who took to the streets, and they immediately became the target of the Ayatollahs. I had only 2 friends with whom I had been in contact since I arrived from Iran, and unfortunately, both of them died in the protests after the recent events. The Iranians stood up to the Ayatollahs, but they were unable to overthrow them on their own. For over a month and a half, we have been begging foreign powers to support us, to intervene in any way they can, because only we, the Iranian people, can see what this regime is capable of. This does not change the fact that each time it exceeds our wildest expectations, but we need it and still need outside help because we cannot fight this brutal regime with our bare hands. Donald Trump's war against Iran's Ayatollah regime seems to be exactly what the Iranian people needed. It would sound silly if I said liberator, but in this situation there is no other power that would be able to fight this regime. Today, as Massa says, all Iranians, except for those associated with the Ayatollah regime, support the American intervention. It is the 6th day of the war, and there's a smile on my face and everyone else's. There's a reason for that. For the first time, we see, both inside and outside the country, that we are united as never before. The dream? To end Islam in Iran. I believe that the end of Islam in Iran will be the beginning of good, not only for Iran, but also for the entire Middle East. Iran could once again become a normal and friendly country where, in the early 1940s, Polish soldiers from Anders' army, among others, found refuge. Iran and Poland have a very good history together. You helped the Poles. I lived in Tehran, not far from the cemetery of Anders' army soldiers who were refugees. Now Iran needs Poland. Iranians expect above all to be listened to be allowed to tell their tragic story of their struggle against the Ayatollah regime, and to show the truth of Iran's Islamic ruling class.